I'm going to ask everyone to rise.
When troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the memorial service for a dear friend, amazing guy, amazing husband, father, brother, uncle, of John Scott Biesecker, but to many of us, the Beast. Come on, y'all might as well go on and say it. Say the Beast. I received a text. Ronnie Beverly sent me a text and told me about the passing of Scott. And I was just sitting there, just like, wow, all these thoughts went through my head. And right after that, I get a phone call from a 413 number, and I just happened to answer it. And it was his beautiful wife, Jenny, and John. And they asked me to to lead his memorial service. What an amazing, amazing honor to be able to stand before you all and the family in this time of need. We're going to begin by reading Psalms 23. And then my beautiful wife, who is going to come and lead us in the singing of Amazing Grace. That's not my gift. So I asked her to do that because I can't sing a lick. But let us read. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, we have already come. 'Twas grace that brought us safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. And grace will lead me home. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see.
Amen. At this time, we're going to have a time of remembrance from family and guests.
Well, after Beth asked me to speak here, I didn't really know what to say, so I called John and I said, man, I don't know what to say. He said, you should have a bunch of stories you can tell. So I thought, yeah, okay, this might be easier than I thought. But then I started thinking of all the stories. And out of 1,000, 990 of them I can't tell. And I cleaned up the other ones as best I could. But anyway, Scott Biesecker, also known as Scotty B, Big Daddy, the Beast. I think one of his college football buddies morphed that one into the Breastmaster. Coach, or just old B. We were best friends for over 40 years, and man, we had a lot of fun along the way. We lived on the same street for 3 or 4 years. I don't remember exactly. Then we were at the same play school together. And then for about 8 years, we went to different schools and really didn't hang out, lost touch. Then in middle school, we reconnected and quickly bonded. And the next 20 years were a pretty wild ride. I would stay over at his house, spend the night, and we would sneak out and walk up to the convenience store on Fifth Avenue and buy Swisher sweet cigars and some snacks. And then we'd head back. And on the way up there and on the way back, you know, it was probably 11 o'clock at night or something. And if we saw a police car, we'd jump in the woods or hide behind something until they went by. But then Scott got his first set of wheels when he was about 14 or 15. He had a shiny red moped named Moby. And he would ride that thing all over town, usually with me or somebody else on the back holding on. Then in 1982, we went to see the Ozzy Osbourne Diary of a Madman concert, with many more concerts to follow. But I'm pretty sure after seeing Ozzy, that's when the real wildness began. As freshmen and sophomores, before we got our driver's license, we would find out where the weekend party was going to be, and we'd start looking for a ride on Friday morning. In high school, we had such a great group of friends and classmates to hang out with. We did a bunch of stupid stuff, but we had a great time, didn't we? Our senior year, we were lab partners in biology class. And for part of our final grade, we had to dissect a cat and identify 10 randomly chosen body parts. Now, I was a slow, meticulous, fat-trimming surgeon, if you will, and he wanted to just cut that thing open and start identifying parts. And the more I trimmed the fat, the madder he got, thinking we would never learn all the parts in time. We did learn all the parts, or at least he did. On the final question, and each person got 5 questions, and you could either agree or disagree with your partner. And he got to answer that last question first, and I hesitantly and reluctantly disagreed with him. He got 100 and I got a 90. But we did get an A+ on the dissection portion. And for the fruit fly experiment in biology class, our fruit flies died, just like most everyone's did. I looked at him and I was like, what are we going to do now? And he just started using logic and doing the math and figured out most of the right answers. I thought for sure the best we were going to get was a C, and we ended up with a B+. And I think it was one of the highest grades in the class. In college, we would road trip between Greensboro and Wilmington, I remember the first time I went to Greensboro and hung out with him and all these big football players, and little me running around with them, and they basically ruled the campus. So we went to some party, and those guys were just wide open. Had a great time. The first time Scott came to Wilmington, he was outside of our dorm, and he was discharging this fire extinguisher that John and I had acquired somehow. Not sure about that. And that's when the campus police showed up. They took him to the station thinking he had stolen it from one of the other dorms. And he truthfully told them that he had not. So after they checked all the dorms and realized that he was telling the truth, they had to let him go. So we were all outside the police station waiting on him to get out of jail. And then after he got out, we proceeded with our night. Scott and I loved to wrestle each other. We loved watching professional wrestling on television. He would always pin me or make me tap out until the one time we were in Atlanta and we went to see the Carolina in the Peach Bowl. That next morning, we started messing around, wrestling around a little bit in the hotel room. And I don't know how, but somehow I got him and rolled him over. I think he rolled over me, and then all of a sudden, bam, I'm on top of him in between the wall and the bed, and I had him on the floor like that. And that was my one and only victory in our wrestling matches. Years later, the two of us and Doc, we decided we were going to ride over to Greensboro and get tickets to go to the Sunday night WWF wrestling. We got to the ticket window, and we said, we want the best seats available. And the lady said, well, how about ringside seats? And we were just like, yeah. We just looked at each other, we couldn't believe it. We didn't even ask how much they were. We just knew we were ringside. And we said, heck yeah, we want them. And that was a blast. Then Scott and I both eventually wound up back in Lexington to start our careers and families. And that's when Scott got me involved with communities and schools. Because he knew the importance of helping young males in the community, to help them get an education and teaching them how to become men. Scott coached and mentored many young men, countless. And I promise you, they have not forgotten the lessons he taught them on and off the field. Scott sometimes had an odd way of showing it, but he loved his family. And he was especially proud of you, Jordan. He told me that many times. If I could sum Scott up in just a few words, they would be proud, extremely passionate, smart, hardworking, generous, and funny, and maybe just a little bit hard-headed too. We used to joke when we were in our 30s how we could not believe that we had made it this far. And now I can't believe he's gone at such a young age. He was my brother, and I'm going to miss him.
Appreciate Ted lightening the mood there, because I was crying before I got started, and I'm feeling a little better about this. So, one thing I can say is I can 100% relate to what you said at the beginning, Ted. I have stories upon stories of my time with Scott, and 98% are just not appropriate for this particular setting. So, So, for those of the folks here that, don't know me, my name's Dexter Garner, and I've worked with Scott at Turlington & Company for the past little over 13 years. And over that time, we became really close, and I honestly just considered him one of my best friends. Oh, there's literally 1,000 different directions I could have gone with what I want to say today. I have story after story that I could share about my time around him, most of which may be borderline inappropriate. Scott didn't care about those borders, though, and that's why I loved him. He was a mentor, a coach, and a leader. He was a teacher, not in the literal sense, but whether he knew it or not, he taught me lessons that have impacted my life in ways that I don't know I fully realized until this past week. I want to go through a few of those lessons with you here today. Lesson number 1, be your true self. Love it or hate it, Scott told things like they were. He was brutally honest, and he often joked that his approach to interpersonal communication was sometimes to his detriment. His advice to me was always, look at the things I've done and don't do those things. One time I went with him to a meeting with a former client, keyword here being former, and they wanted his advice on how to go about maintaining one of their businesses that was failing. In their mind, failure wasn't an option. They made the unfortunate mistake of asking Scott directly, what would you do in this situation? So Scott sat back in his chair for a second, considering the 2 distinct paths that he could take on that question. One was soft, sugar-coated, and basically the path of least resistance. But his actual advice? Well, if it were me, I would head down to the hardware store before they close the business, buy a large chain and the biggest padlock that they have on the shelf, and I'd shut that baby down today. Everybody at the table shuffled in their seat. After the initial shock wore off, it took everything I had not to bust out laughing. So maybe he was a little rough around the edges, but he wasn't wrong, and everybody at the table knew it. While his advice wasn't followed that day, it turned out to be the truth years later. I always admired that about him. He had the willingness and the courage to cut straight to the truth, no matter how uncomfortable the truth might have been. Lesson number 2, don't take yourself too seriously. Several years ago, we had a coworker that wanted to bid on a job in Charlotte. It required an in-person interview if the firm's interested, but the coworker was going to be out of town, so he asked Scott if he could go for him. Scott recruited me to go with him. I had just started, so I was more just a ride-along buddy and a lunch partner than someone that was actually going to contribute some value to the meeting. So we arrive at the location in our stupid suits, and we walk upstairs. We greeted a secretary as we told her we were there representing an accounting firm to bid on their audit. She looked at us a little puzzled, but politely showed us to a large conference room and shut the door behind her as she exited. It looked like we were the first people there, which we thought was a great first impression. About 10 minutes later, a man in a suit walked in and told us that the meeting had occurred 2 hours prior. It was after we had drove a little over an hour and a half to get there. So after he said this, Scott was convinced that they had made a mistake. I watched as he nervously shuffled through the papers that he brought and located the meeting time. He let out a loud, "Huh. You are correct, sir." Well, Dex, looks like we better get back on the highway. So we tucked our tails and got back to the car. The entire ride back was full of brief periods of silence, followed by self-directed expletives from the driver's seat because he was humiliated at the thought of having to face our coworker to tell him what happened. I literally laughed until I cried on the way home that day. When he dropped me off at my house, he said that it certainly wasn't the best day for him, but that he was glad that I got such a kick out of it. For whatever reason, mostly because of the hilarious expletives he directed at himself, it was a day that I always remembered. It was embarrassing, no doubt about it. He could have been mad and taken it out on me for not reading the for not reading the fine print any closer than he did. He could have shut down and ignored me for the entire ride, but he owned it, and he found the humor in it. He was always good at that. Lesson number 3, treat people like people. I asked my friend Sam, who used to work with me and Scott, about what lasting impression Scott had on him. Once again, some of the hilarious stories were inappropriate for the occasion, but he did say he admired how Scott treated him like a person first and an employee second. This is an old text he found that Scott sent to me and him after our annual Christmas party. I really do appreciate everything y'all do. This has been the best year I've had at this company in a really long time. Y'all are so fun to be around. Hope you got enough to eat because the filet looked like an hors d'oeuvre. He had a way with words. When you get out of school and get a real-world job, you're not always lucky enough to have someone ahead of you that's consistently in your corner. Scott was exactly that to me. What later evolved into a great friendship for us started as a mentor-mentee relationship. If he believed in you, he had an amazing way of instilling confidence, building you up, and helping you find your way along the bumpy road that is life. He celebrated with me at my best times, and he helped pick me up at my worst. But he was always there and supportive, no matter the situation. He went out of his way, most of the time sacrificing his own personal gain, to take care of me and the people that work for him. Lesson number 4, show compassion. Scott worked harder than probably anyone I know. This guy loved accounting more than any one person rightfully should love accounting. He had an accounting-themed tie, for goodness sake. And hell, I was embarrassed for him for that. Anyways, through his dedication and his hard work, he built a good life for himself and was well off compared to a lot of people. But he always had a soft place in his heart for people that had less, and he would go out of his way to help them. I saw this time and time again in both large ways and small. He was a volunteer at so many local nonprofit organizations through the years, working late into the night because sometimes that's the only time that his schedule would allow. He stayed in contact with kids that he coached in football as they grew up and had kids of their own. He would help their families with Christmas gifts or whatever else they needed with no questions asked and expecting nothing in return. A couple of months ago, he was in the emergency room lobby for a scan and found himself next to a woman in a wheelchair that was really bad off. She was moaning and groaning in pain. She had went to the bathroom on herself and her clothes were a mess. He went to the front desk and told the receptionist that she needed help, or at least a change of clothes. After some time passed with no response, Scott being Scott, wheeled the lady himself past the big signs that said, "Do not enter," and yelled out that she needed help, and if they wouldn't help her, that he'd give him a change of clothes and he'll do it himself. Subtlety was never his strong suit. Where he saw injustice or wrongdoing, he stood on the side of what was right, and he didn't care if his delivery made him the bad guy. Before he got sick, we would go to lunch regularly. I always took note of how kind he was to service staff. I'm a good tipper, but his tips to the wait staff would make me look like Scrooge McDuck. I watched him eat meals that were, 1, either not what he actually ordered, or 2, borderline disgusting, and he didn't return them because he didn't want to be rude to the restaurant staff. I know those are small things, but it's the small things that really show the heart of a person. And whether he outwardly showed it or not, Scott had a heart the size of this room. Scott's lasting impression, his legacy, might not be riches and fortune, but it's bigger than that. Scott will always be remembered by the impact that he had on others, the good that he stood for, and the lessons that he taught, whether he knew he was doing it or not. I'll carry those lessons with me for the rest of my life. Rest easy, Scott B.
Good afternoon. I am so honored that Scott wanted me to speak at his memorial service today. I think that I speak for us all when I say that I am just so shocked. I received a text message from Scott last Saturday, and a week and a day later, we are here celebrating his life. Scott and I were close. We talked a lot, almost every day, usually for a very long time. Scott and I talked so much that I'm sure there were times I got him in trouble with Jenny. I can remember just a few weeks ago, we were deep in conversation, and I noticed that his phone kept beeping. I asked him if he needed to take it, and he said he would call back. Then I looked at my phone, and it was Jenny asking me what Scott wanted from Chick-fil-A. But don't worry, Jenny. It wasn't just me getting Scott in trouble with you. It was also Scott getting me in trouble with my wife. My wife is a nurse in the ER at High Point Regional. She works a night shift. Sometimes I take her lunch on her lunch break around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Well, before rolling out, I would call Scott. I had at least a 30-minute ride, take another 10 minutes to grab food, and surely that would be enough time for Scott and I to talk. There would be times when I would get to High Point Regional, have been sitting in the parking lot for 30 minutes, and before I knew it, her lunch break was over. That usually didn't make for a good night when she got home. When I was asked to speak today, I thought about telling a few anecdotal stories about Scott and I's time together. But then I remembered that this service was going to be in the chapel, and I needed to keep it PG, and Scott was everything but PG. So instead, I settled in on talking about what Scott meant to me and what I feel his legacy will be in the Lexington community. If you knew Scott, then you knew that he was a football enthusiast. Football was such an important part of his life. Jenny put it in his obituary that was online, but Scott was really proud of his football state championship. To win a state championship, everybody has to play their role and play it well. And to me, there is no surprise that Scott was a star offensive lineman on his team. I believe there are 4 characteristics of a good offensive lineman that Scott possessed, not just on the football field, but also in life. The first characteristic of a good offensive lineman is that they do a lot of work, but usually don't get any credit. Offensive linemen are grinders. They are tenacious. They are tough. But usually they do this while looking for nothing in return. You won't read about an offensive lineman in the paper. You won't read about them being the player of the game. They won't be the most valuable player, but the fact of the matter is that they are probably the most important function of the team. If you knew Scott, then you knew that he was a grinder. Scott was tenacious, and he did it while also looking for nothing in return. There were so many causes he supported, so many events that he sponsored with his own money, but he didn't mind someone else taking the credit for it and keeping himself out of it, because in his heart, he was always an offensive lineman. The second characteristic of a good lineman is that they are quick to take the blame when something goes wrong, even if it wasn't their fault. A quarterback, a running back, and wide receivers have the convenience of blaming the lineman if they can't execute their plays appropriately. And typically, the lineman will just take it on the chin. There are so many people who complain about what they believe is wrong in our community. They complain about our schools, but so few people are willing to put themselves out there to make a difference. But Scott was. And even when things didn't go according to plan, when things got off schedule, when things became unpopular, when things went wrong, Scott was willing to stand up for what he believed in and take the blame when they didn't work out, even if it wasn't his fault. Not only do good offensive linemen do all the work and not get any credit, not only do they take the blame when things go wrong, good offensive linemen create paths and lanes for other people to follow behind. And Scott did that. He created a path, a legacy, a blueprint for our school system, for our children, and for our community, and for our family, for his family. Not only do good offensive linemen do all the work and not get any credit, not only do good offensive linemen have to take the blame when something goes wrong, not only do they create paths and lanes for people to follow, but finally, good offensive linemen have to run through what other people get to run from. The ultimate objective of a quarterback, a running back, and wide receiver is not to get tackled. It is to evade defenders. But offensive linemen have to confront the very issues, the very problems, the very conundrums that everyone else is trying to avoid. I believe that when God made the beast, that he gave him an extra dose of courage. Scott ran through issues. He ran through problems. He ran through conversations that the rest of our community was not quite ready to have. And if you put those characteristics of a good lineman together, you get one heck of a fighter. And Scott was a fighter. Scott fought. He fought on the football field. He fought to win a state championship. He fought to go to college. He fought to get a degree. He fought to become an accountant. He fought to become a partner. He fought for his clients. He fought for his family. He fought for our community. He fought for children. He fought for equity. He fought for change. He fought cancer. He fought tumors all over his body. He fought through masses. He fought through adversity. He fought through unbelievable changes. But Scott didn't just teach me how to fight. He also taught me how to finish. Scott fought and then he finished. He finished with his courage, and he finished with his dignity, and I believe that God still honors courage. Scott, I am going to miss you, my friend, but I'm grateful that you have gone on to create a path, a lane, a legacy for us to follow. Lexington is a stronger community, and the world is a much better place because you were here. I'll see you in the morning, my friend.
Well, first of all, I appreciate y'all's patience. We might have a few speakers here today, but this is important. Ted and Scott had a lifelong bromance. Garrett and Scott's bromance caught fire much later in life, as you can tell. But Scott and I were friends at a young age, but our bond, unbreakable bond, did not start as a friendship when we were kids, or even when I met his beautiful wife and married his Wow, hold on. One more time. I married his beautiful sister, Beth. How about that? I think I should just stick to the words down here. But it was forged during our service together on the Lexington City School Board. Scott had asked me to serve and help him, and as I joined him on the board, he helped me learn how to advocate for our youth, especially those facing poverty and racism. Scott's ask of me changed my life forever, and I will always love him for that ask. Today we're here to celebrate John Scott Biesecker, who was a beast of a man, both in stature and in fight, and his time on the football field sealed that nickname. But my nickname for Scott was Uncle B. It was a much more endearing term to me that represented the true man, one of love and compassion and that unyielding drive to defend those he considered family and he felt did not have a voice or were being dismissed. But I would like to take a moment to celebrate the strong women in Scott's battle through this cancer. These are the warriors who helped Scott fight through pain and fear over the last year and a half. I know many of you were shocked by the news of Scott's passing. He kept his struggle close to the chest, and he did not know how to share his struggle, even with some of his closest friends. Scott wanted to shield everyone, even his clients, whom he served with the help of his good friend Dexter up until his last days. He wanted to shield them from his struggles, and I know to some it felt cold and distant, but he meant no harm. Just know that for the beast of the man that he was, this was one battle he did not know how to fight. Scott's battle with cancer was a roller coaster of emotions fraught with hopes of cure and fears of death. Just last month, Scott had to cancel a trip to New York to see a doctor because he had tumors on the brain. He could not travel till he got them treated. His health was declining, but he had another visit to MD Anderson in Houston that Jenny and her family had miraculously set up that gave us all hope. The Monday prior to Scott's trip, he was struggling, weak, disoriented, and had difficulty standing. Many of us thought Scott may not make it through that trip, but there was one person who knew he was, and that was his mother, Mary Lou. She knew because she was the one at 76 years young that was going to take him. This trip was a Hail Mary play in Scott's fight with cancer, and Mary Lou was quarterback, front line, and wide receivers. She wheeled him 2,000 miles with wheelchair in tow, and the treatment they provided rejuvenated Scott. He returned with a refreshed spirit, as well as a newfound respect for the beast that was in his mother. These last few weeks, Scott seemed better, but the battle within him was raging. Just before Scott unexpectedly passed, Jordan was able to spend at least 5 days with him at home due to unexpected health issues. I believe there was a godly spirit playing a role in that time together. Scott was able to spend quality time with the light of his life. Scott was so proud of Jordan and beamed when he spoke about her. During Scott's last night, he was in a lot of pain and having difficulty breathing. His wife, Jenny, was right by his side, helping comfort him and soothe him as she had been for the last year and a half. His pain was her pain. His labored breathing was her labored breathing. I always saw Jenny putting her needs and wants second to those of others and deferring to the wishes of other family members to make things as peaceful as possible. Scott and Jenny's love for each other was strengthened during this battle. That night, Scott had to be taken to the hospital, and he was his same humble self. As EMS showed up and asked him what was wrong, in his most humble voice, he said, "Oh, a little bit of cancer." Beth was with Scott in the emergency room. She was desperate to comfort him with her healing, calming touch that can only come from a bond forged over a lifetime of shared battles together. Scott often called Beth over to the house to help calm him and bring peace to his anxiety. Everyone else knew and accepted that Beth's hands brought a special healing love for Scott. But as Scott struggled for life within that emergency room, I think it was the love of another strong woman, a stranger, that helped give him peace. This stranger was an ER nurse who joined Beth in trying to soothe Scott and asked if it was okay to say a prayer. At first, she prayed for a miracle, and then a little later, at Beth's request, and with a room full of hospital staff around Scott, prayed for Scott's spirit to be blessed and accepted by God. So at this time, the family would like to open the floor. If someone would like to share a remembrance of Scott, you're welcome to come forward or stand up in your seat and provide that. So at this time, we're opening up to other friends.
I'm just gonna stand right here, y'all hear my voice. I wanna say something on what you just got me saying about Scott and prayer at the church, at the hospital. I talk to him late at night, all the time, and after his first surgery, he called me and he said, Vince, I made it through this surgery, but I feel like I can do something better, so how I call it. And I said, Scott, I ain't no preacher or nothing like that, but we like to talk to me about religion at times. And I said, Scott, man, as long as you know the Lord, man, you're going to be all right. And for you to say what you just said about at the hospital and everything, I just want to tell the family, he up there in heaven. Everything's all right. No more pain. To be absolute, he with the Lord. So God bless y'all. And my true condolences to the family.
Thank you, Ben. I'd like to say something before you start. My name is Robert Curley. I'm a hard man, but I'm here to honor and say goodbye to my friend.
know that I've met an awful lot of people. But God blessed me with finding my kindred spirit. And that was Scott Biesecker. We became an institution when I was working at Silver Diamond, 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. Right down Tampa Boulevard. They expected us every Saturday morning. If he would get there first, I walked in, the waitresses would say, he's over there. If I was to get there first, I could hear them yelling at Scott, he's over there. And laughter went on. Nothing was sacred. Nothing was sacred. And the times that were existing there was like the gift that kept on giving. We just had laughter. And when we parted, I learned something. I'm just here to say, I miss my friend. And I was impacted, just totally devastated by the news. And then I sat and I began to remember those things. And I realized that God has blessed us all with one gift. And that's the ability to recall. As I've listened to the speakers, we all have a Scott Biesecker story. And that is my friend.
My name is Jason Hayes. When I was probably 6 or 7 years old, I think it was, I was really excited. My dad signed us up for a membership, a pool membership at Hillside Pool. And I was just so excited about that. And we were driving over to Hillside Pool and pulling up the street. In fact, I drove there today because of this occasion. We were driving up the street to Hillside Pool, and I saw a kid walking on the street, and he was a guy about my age, probably 6 or 7 years old, about my size, small, petite. He had dark hair. And I thought, sitting in the front seat, I was getting more and more excited as I was getting to the pool. And I saw this guy who kind of looked like me. And, I thought, God, that'd be a great friend to play with, right? I wonder if he goes to the pool. I wonder if he could be my friend. And so I'm looking at the guy, and all of a sudden he looks around at me. And apparently my gaze was just a little too long. At me as if his eyes could cut right through me. And I thought, my God, I don't think I'm going to be able to be this guy's friend. He's way too intense. That was Scott. I met him at Hillside Pool, and we struck up a great friendship. I would spend the night at his house. Mary Lou cooked breakfast. Beth would cook breakfast. He would spend the night at my house. And as most guys can probably understand, when you have a friend you're hanging out with all the time, there's a competitiveness that can build over time. And much in the same way that this guy stared through the back of my head, he competed with me on everything. So I thought, still to this day, I'm not sure if he was competing with me, I was competing with him, we were competing with each other. I still don't know. But his spirit was contagious. I remember when we were in picket school. I don't know if some of you guys did this or not, but if I was going to shop for shoes, I'd go through the Sears catalog and see, what kind of shoes I wanted. And I saw a pair, and they were called track shoes, and I thought, God, those can't be that cool. Well, I went to school the next day, Scott had a pair of track shoes. So I went and ordered my track shoes. Then Scott got the first pair of Nikes. Then going to anywhere I could, the grocery stores, Gibson's, all those kinds of things. And every time I'd get there, you know, I'd be sweating profusely. Scott got a moped. He made the moped look so cool. So cool. And then he and I were in Dunbar together. And one of the most, this is way before you, honey, way before Anna. Heather Belt was probably the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. All right? I don't know if Heather's here today. Hopefully she's not. Thank you. I'll get with her on Facebook. So Heather, you know, and I told my kids at times I was an early dater. You know, I first started dating Julie Blackwell in first grade, second grade. Of course, Julie would say, you know, I've got a great friend. And I was like, Scott? Yep. Idlewild Drive. They look both, and Scott would always tell me about all the time they spend together. And then Heather, when I first started dating her, would say, I've got a great friend. His name's Scott Biesecker. I said, I know Scott. Scott's a good friend of mine, too. So I can tell you, I swear, I don't know if you guys remember this when you used to call people, and no call waiting, no anything. If the phone's busy, that means you're talking to somebody else, right? I could swear to God that Scott left school, ran home, and called Heather Bell. Every day. Every time I tried to call Heather, she was on the phone with Scott. Anyway, we go through high school, and obviously Scott and I played football together. And I'm just so happy, and he would be too, that so many of our teammates are here together today because he loved it so much. And of course, Scott gets named the Beast. I got a name, Abdullah. Every time I turn around, this guy is beating me. Anyway, we went on to college, and I traveled a lot in my early years of my career, and Scott and I kind of drifted apart. We were in different circles, different places, as is typically the case, or can be the case with your
big bite out of it. And all you can see is all the brothers look at each other and go, this white boy's crazy. That's all I'm talking about. He had us so scared that if we so much as laid off 1 second, that we were going to get beat. Not that he was going to do anything, but we were going to get beat. And that spread to my whole life. When Ted called me and told me, the only thing I could think about was intensity. There's guys that I work with who go, dude, you go, and you don't stop. You're not the best at it, but you don't stop. I had no reason to stop. I provide for my family. And that's the one thing he taught me. You go until you fall out and get back up and do it all over again. Because if you ain't dead yet, if something hasn't killed you, you still got energy. Get up, do it all over again. And that stuck with me my whole life. It stuck with me. And I just want to thank you for being an example. First, to get Ted into it, because if it wasn't for that man, I don't even think I'd have a work ethic. He surrounded me by men at his job that gave me work ethic. Scott gave me work ethic on the football field and never let me live down. One more story. I was sitting at home, probably my junior year, I had a knee injury, and I was supposed to be studying for a biology test. Him and Ted come into the house. He picks up a biology book and said, what chapter are you on? I think I told him chapter 7. There's questions at the back of the book. And he just sits down, starts asking me questions. So what are you doing? He said, you ain't had nothing else to do, you should know this. You should know this. This shouldn't even, you should know this. He starts asking me questions I can't answer a single one. He said, you've been sitting here watching TV. Yeah. He said, if you don't prepare now, I'm going to give you up. What people don't realize is that when he was hard on you, he loved you. He wanted to see you accomplish something. And I thank him for that. And if you can't tell, he's touched a lot of people. When I drove up, I was like, oh my God. I knew it was going to be big. I had the slightest idea. He reached far and wide.
Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm Scott's daughter. Since we're talking about the last text that he sent, he actually sent me one with not very nice words about my money spending problem. And I responded back asking if I could buy another dress, which he said yes. So he wasn't too hard. My dad's biggest pride and joy was his family. I swear nothing made him happier made him happier and his heart so full than my relationship with my Aunt Beth, his sister, and my cousins Jack and Will. Jack and Will have been my rock since the day I can remember. Jack always being there to be the one to give me older cousin brotherly advice, and Will to listen to everything I may say with open ears, even if it's at 7 a.m. and I'm ranting about something in the morning on the way to school. With that being said, although our family may be individual characters from all Melissa McCarthy movies, I couldn't be more thankful and prideful to be a part of such an amazing family through all. My dad was a selfless man. Anything and everything he did was in full intention to make me or anyone else around him happy. He had such a big and strong heart for everyone and always fought for what was right. My dad's passion for underserved children's equality within schools is the most honorable quality that he shared with everyone. My dad is the reason I am pursuing my dreams and teaching special education in a high-poverty school system. My dad always told me that I can be anyone I want to be. He had such high standards for me and always pushed me to achieve at the highest level that I can. My dad made me feel like I can do anything in this world. In my eyes, my dad could do anything. Lily, can you read it?
My dad made me feel like I can do anything in the world. In my eyes, my dad could do anything he put his mind to. I could lie and say that my dad loved everyone because we all know he was a tough man with the catchphrase, "I hate people." But let's be honest with that statement, my dad loved everyone in this room. I cherish all memories I got to share with my dad, playing Call of Duty for hours on end, watching Criminal Minds, Elementary and Bowl, making our runs to Biscuit King and the Barbecue Center, going on our drives by City Lake and Lake Tomalex, every swim meet and basketball tournament, and every single phone call we shared while I was away at school. I could always count on my dad to answer the phone, regardless if it was 3 a.m. in the middle of the week. With all this being said, my dad was the best person in my life. He was my best friend and the best influence in my life. I take pride in being my father's daughter and taking after an inspiring and brave man.
My name is Beth, and I am Scott's younger and only sibling. Because I am the youngest, there has never been a day when Scott was not in my life. He was only 4 years older, but he was my third parent, if not my primary, many of times. Scott was my playmate. I can remember playing board games, climbing trees, wrestling. This was not always for play either. Playing with G.I. Joe and Stretch Armstrong dolls. Scott was my transportation, whether that was to school, a friend's house, or going to get fast food. Scott was my shield. He was my protector. This could range from comforting me during parental fights, taking care of a peeping Tom, which he did, or giving sound advice when things were awry. Scott taught me to stand up for myself. This means to be assertive about my feelings, needs, and beliefs, and have a confidence that I am doing the right thing. During many difficult personal and family times, Scott not only let me lean on him, but he carried my burden as though it were his own. Now, Scott and I did not always see eye to eye. When those times occurred, and they did quite frequently, things could get explosive. When Scott and I teamed up together, we would take on the world. When we divided, we would take on each other. Now, this is not to imply that Scott and I did not have a lot of love and respect for each other. It was because of love and respect that we would stand strong and defiant in our beliefs. Scott and I both have very strong personalities. This can be a blessing or a curse. Scott was a community leader and advocate. He was very passionate about many things, the youth and equity, to name a few. He believed everyone should be given a fair chance regardless of race, religion, or socioeconomic status. Scott was very outspoken and obstinate when it came to the well-being of others. He was the voice to those who were unheard. This caused great strife within his life. He was not always liked or popular. However, he refused to give in, regardless of the consequences he might face. Scott was a friend to many. Friendship is defined as a relationship of mutual affection between people. Scott had many solid friendships throughout his life. Some of those remain and some faded away. The best gift anyone can receive is having an honest friend. That was Scott. Lastly, we have Scott, the family man. Scott was a husband, father, son, brother, and uncle. Scott took all of these roles to heart and tried to honor each one of these to the best of his ability. His greatest achievement was his daughter, Jordan. He felt absolute pride. Scott tried to create a healthy father-daughter relationship by offering unconditional love, support, and trust. Now, this is not to say that Scott could not be hard on Jordan. His goal was to teach her that the world was challenging and unfair. However, you can achieve great things with empathy, hard work, commitment, and loyalty. Most of all, treat people as people. Scott was authentic, honest, brutally at times, passionate, witty, and giving. Scott had a huge heart and was very gentle. Now, not many people got to see that side of Scott. Scott had fear. If you saw that side, he would get hurt or get taken advantage of. Scott has made a huge difference in so many lives, and he has changed the world for the better. Now, before the service ends, there is going to be a song played called The River. Scott found this song a few months ago and fell in love with it. The song is about redemption and being reborn. Right before one of Scott's surgeries, Scott knew he was in bad shape. And he reflected on his life. And he wanted to be a different person. He wanted to let go of some anger and let love and light in. So when you listen to the song, I just want you to know that this song was very important to him, and he wanted to have all his sins washed away. Scott would be very happy to know that you are all here today to honor his life. Scott did not like to talk about death. And there were a couple times when he was progressing that I would ask him about certain things he wanted. And a funeral was one of them. And I said, do you want any speakers? And he said, yes, I want this person, this person, this person, and this person. And he said, well, wait a minute. I think I want this person, this person, this person, and this person too. And I said, Scott, you can't have all those people. You can't. He said, why are you trying to cut my docket? So another time I brought it up. And his response was, well, hell, I mean, you've already told me I can't have all these people speaking. So for those of you who spoke, who shared a memory, for those of you who have memories but do not feel comfortable sharing those, it means a lot. It means a lot to him. I'm going to end with a poem called My Brother. As kids, we lived together, we fought, we laughed, we cried. We did not always show the love that we both had inside. We shared our dreams and plans and some secrets too. All the memories we share is what bonds me now to you. We grew to find we have a love that is very strong today. It's a love shared by our family that will never fade away. You are my brother, not by choice, but by the nature of our birth. I could not have chosen a better one. You were the best on the earth. We love you, Scott, and we will meet again one day.
All I can say is, wow, I got the tough part. All these great speakers today reflecting on such a great guy. Just to hear the stories, hearing Ted and John and Jason and everybody talking about, Scott. And I don't know where y'all get these crazy stories from because I don't know that side of Scott. Seriously, when I got the call and his beautiful wife and John asked me to do this, I just began to reflect. And my remembrance of Scott really began in 1985. I don't remember anything about Scott from him being in the 10th grade or when I was a freshman. It's when Scott's a senior and I'm a junior. And we're on this quest to play varsity football. So much competition here in Lexington. All I know is that I wanted to start. And I did everything I could do to make the starting team. And so as I thought about, what to say as it pertains to Scott and his life and his legacy, I also wanted to embrace the challenge to share some things with his wife and his beautiful daughter and all of us. Inheritance is what you leave for someone, but legacy is what you leave in them. And I think it's important that we understand that Scott's life is about legacy. And we all need to pick up the ball and continue on his fight so that his legacy can continually live. So as they reached out to me, I took some time and I thought, and I wrote down 5 things that I just wanted to share with you all on a little simple little subject. What Scott wouldn't allow. What Scott wouldn't allow. And this is a perspective from being on that great state championship team of 1985. Scott was an offensive tackle. Man, that offensive line was interesting. You had Jeff Adams, Rancher Harris, Warren, Harrison, Bruce Ritter, and then on the right side you had Scott. Scott, I'm 5'7.5", and Scott's whatever, and I always lined up in the huddle behind him, so you never could see me. But I should have known the first game of the year, and I often reflect on this. I said, I should have known then it was going to be a crazy ride. We were playing Concord, and they had all of these All-Americans, Angelo Robinson, Andre White, and he had this big linebacker that everybody was recruiting. And we had this All-American, loud quarterback by the name of Deems May. And we were beating them. And I don't know why I remember this, Deems. I don't know why I remember this, Vincent, but we go to the line, and Deems says, "Biese, is that All-American linebacker?" He says, "Yes." And he said, "He ain't S-H-I-T." Should have known what I was going to be getting involved in. It was a wild ride. And before I share these 5 things, I went on and Scott went on and played at Guilford College, and I finally made it to Guilford and played there. And there was a tradition at Guilford that the loudest incoming person got taped to the pole. And I wasn't used to losing. I hadn't lost 4 games all my life in all sports. And, we get to Guilford, and of course, that incoming person that got taped to the pole was me. Well, the interesting thing was, you got taped to the pole once. I broke a record. I talked so much junk, I got taped to the pole twice. And I remember vividly the last time I got taped, it was Scott and Steve Mason them was leading the way with the tape, and the last thing they taped was my mouth. So, as we reflect on his life and as we leave from this place, I just want to share with you 5 things that Scott wouldn't allow. My perspective from playing football with Scott. The first thing is, Scott wouldn't allow you to stay down. What do you mean by that? Being an offensive lineman and me being a running back, if I did get tackled, which didn't happen a whole lot, Scott would always come and pick you up. He didn't let you lay on the ground long. And when I think about that, we need to learn that from Scott. We got to have this gift about us to not allow people to lay down. Scott would not allow you to stay down. He was always there to pick you up, to say, "Get up, let's go do it again." The second thing that I learned from Scott, that Scott wouldn't allow, is Scott wouldn't allow you to settle. If you were around him, Scott wanted to win. It was state championship, nothing else. Scott would not allow you to settle. It was no being second place, no being mediocre in life. He always wanted you to be your best. I hadn't been around Lexington a whole lot, but just hearing these stories and to see how much time he spent in the community, I still realize that as I reflect, he had the same nature, is that he didn't want young men and people in this community to settle. And he didn't want Lexington to settle. He believed that everybody in this city, regardless of your color, regardless of your religion, regardless of your economic background, there should be no settling. And so I appreciate that Scott never allowed us to settle. The third thing is that Scott wouldn't allow you to be sad. you know, when you fumbled or if you muffed a punt like me, Scott would come along and pat you on the back and say, you know, get up. He wouldn't allow you to let your mistakes beat you up in life. And I don't know about y'all, but you need true friends like that. I know y'all been perfect all y'all life, but I need people who are gonna be there. Everybody can be with you when you're up, but the real friends are there with you when you're down. And Scott was one of those guys that I remember if I made a mistake, he was always gonna come along and say, hold your head up. Scott wouldn't allow you to be sad. Fourth thing, Scott wouldn't allow you to be slack. Scott was an offensive lineman. If you know anything about offensive linemen, they hated running gasters. Some of you might not know what that means, but it's like this conditioning drill that Coach Whitman, God rest his soul, would put us through to help us be strong. And if you jumped before the whistle blew, you had to run again. Listen, if you wanted to hear people fuss at you, no, I ain't gonna, that's a good word, fuss at you, in Scott's word, cuss at you, for jumping, it was Scott. Scott would holler at you, oh man, no, we ain't running no more, you better get this stuff right. Scott would not allow you to be slack. And I think that his legacy in Jordan, I want you to remember that your dad would not allow you, wouldn't want you to be slack. He wants you to go on and achieve all the dreams that you and him talked about. The last thing, as I finish, is Ronnie and Deems, I see you in the back, and I see so many of the people we play with. Scott wouldn't allow you to be selfish. Listening to everybody in here talk, everything that I wrote down, I'm like, man, I'm a genius. Everybody's confirming everything that I'm saying. I'm like, wow, yeah. Scott was a team-first guy. With Scott, you know your role, you play your role. With Scott, no individual name on our football team was bigger than the name, the Lexington Yellow Jackets. Scott would not allow you to be selfish. So my challenge to each and every one of us as we leave here, allow Scott's legacy to continue to live. Let's make sure we don't allow people to stay down when they're down. Let's make sure we don't allow people to settle in life. May not be the president of the United States, but whatever they could do to make an impact, let's not allow them to settle. People will make mistakes. They will get down on themselves. But you never know the impact of you coming along and not allowing them to stay sad will make a difference in their life. Don't allow people to be slack. Challenge people. They talked about Scott being confrontational. He was. But he confronted you because he saw something in you that you may not have saw in yourself. I don't know what I would be if it wasn't for people in this city who saw something in me, in spite of all the things that I went through in my childhood. When I think about a Billy Burnett, when I think about a Burt Mays, people who wouldn't allow me to be slack, wouldn't allow me to make excuses, who instilled things in me that I still carry on to this day. And even my friend Scott, who wouldn't allow me to be slack. And the last thing again is, let's not be selfish. Let's make this world a better place. We got so much discord going on right now, and Scott wasn't about that. We need to make sure that we have a family first, team first approach at life. The 5 things Scott wouldn't allow. God bless you. At this time, we're going to have a song.
traveling these wide roads for so long. My heart's been far from you, 10,000 miles gone. Oh, I wanna come to you and give you every part of me, but there's blood on my hand, and my lips are unclean. In my darkness I remember Mama's words reoccur to me. Surrender to the good Lord, and He'll wipe your slate clean. Take me to your river, I wanna go. Take me to your river, I wanna know. Dip me in your smooth waters, I go in. As a man with many crimes, come up for air. As my sins flow down the Jordan, oh, I wanna come to you and give you every part of me, but there's blood on my hand, and my lips are unclean. Take me to your river, I wanna go now. Take me to your river, I wanna know.
Wanna go, wanna go, wanna go. Wanna know, wanna know, wanna know. Wanna go, wanna go, wanna go. Wanna know, wanna know, wanna know.
Lord, please let me go. Take me to your river, I wanna go. Please let me know. Take me to your river, I wanna know.
Let us all rise. At this time, the family would like for me to relay a message that, for those of you who would like, can also come by and visit the family at 196 West Overdrive. It's 196 West Overdrive. To his beautiful wife, daughter, family, once again, I'd just like to thank you for this opportunity to serve you. We thank God for this beautiful funeral home. Good to see that one of our very own works here. Coach Wes Lamro, was great seeing him. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the life and the legacy of John Scott Biesecker. Father, we thank you. We've heard many things spoken today about his life and his impact. Father, it's my prayer that his legacy will live on, that we would take to heart the things that Scott wouldn't allow, the things that Scott wouldn't want to allow to continue to happen in this city. We pray that you just continue to be the God of all comfort for his family and his friends. Now unto him who's able to keep us from falling and present us faultless before his throne. To the only wise God be power, majesty, and dominion forever and ever. In Jesus' name, amen.